spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
We'll say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner.
Welcome, everybody, to 30 Minutes of Football. So first, I want to comment on the one little statement he says in the intro song. Gardner Minshew is the best backup quarterback in the NFL, and now he's starting. So that aged very well. What do you think about that? I mean, can Gardner Minshew take the Eagles to through postseason? I know Jalen Hurts is going to be back, but can he win this game?
I'm very excited to see how he plays. Great intro, Anthony. What's going on? I had the same exact thought when I heard that in the intro theme. Yeah, I think the Eagles have a pretty solid team all around this year, so I definitely could see Gardner coming in and performing admirably. I don't know if he's going to put up Jalen Hurts numbers, but I think he can perform admirably. It'll be an interesting game.
So since this is our fantasy show, would you start Minshew today?
Ooh, that depends. You know, if I was streaming quarterbacks on the year, I think there are guys like Geno Smith who are playing the Chiefs this week, who I would be more interested in playing. Somebody along the lines of like a Geno Smith, in that range. You know, a Derek Carr per se. I believe they're playing the Steelers. I think that's a bit more of an interesting, appetizing matchup. But I've definitely played worse streaming fantasy quarterback options than Gardner Minshew. So I definitely think it's an okay start.
So Takeo Luna said Brock Purdy is the best backup in the league. That is true. That's
Takeo, you're back. Let's
go.
So
you know, that what you heard in the intro was recorded preseason.
There you go.
So I just think it's funny to see that come to light where now Minshew is playing.
Very topical intro.
But I can agree Brock Purdy is probably the best backup now.
Well, and it's funny because if you think about it, the 49ers might have the two best backup quarterbacks in the league because Jimmy Garoppolo was their backup at the start of the season. So Brock Purdy as a third stringer might still be the best backup quarterback in the league. They might just have the best quarterback room, the most well-rounded quarterback room in the entire league.
So while we're on the Niners, I mean, Trey Lance is going to obviously be back, and then they have Brock Purdy. Where's Jimmy G going to go? Because he is obviously a starter. He will probably be seeing another team next year.
You think Jimmy's getting traded? That's your prediction? Or
he's actually going to be in free agency.
Oh, so you think he's going to walk?
I think so, yeah. They're not going to re-sign him. So, I mean, what team could use Jimmy G? He has a very, this is hard to say, but like a Joe Montana kind of throwing style.
I think my prediction at the moment is going to be Carolina.
Okay, I could see that because, I mean, they're having issues in the quarterback room right now. Getting rid of Baker Mayfield. Sam Darnold isn't really much. Okay, that's interesting.
Takedo's predicting the Saints. That's a very interesting call.
Saints. I mean, I think they like Jameis Winston. He hasn't played. I know they're not going to stick with Andy Dalton, but at least they have two quarterbacks who can play. So I don't see the Saints grabbing Jimmy because they do have two quarterbacks who they know can produce. Where there are other teams that need quarterbacks more, and I think that he'll be more reliable there.
Well, the only reason Carolina wouldn't take a stab is if they really believe in Matt Corral, who they drafted this past season, and he missed the year with an injury. So Matt Corral, we'll see how he develops. We'll see if they have a lot of faith in him coming out of his rookie year into his second season, recovering from a serious injury. We'll see how that plays out. There's a lot of those rookie quarterbacks this year, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, that we don't really have much of an idea about just yet. So I'm very eager to see how that looks. I'm very eager to see how those quarterbacks' careers play out, given that their rookie years were kind of, other than Pickett, pretty much every rookie in this class, their rookie season was kind of swept under the rug. Brock Purdy's the only one that's really had a shot.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's another good reason why Jimmy will go to a team that doesn't have a rookie quarterback, doesn't have somebody they can develop, and that way they have it because he's a bit of a veteran. He doesn't have that many years left in the league. Carolina isn't a quarterback away from the playoffs. They need multiple positions to even be contenders. They're not a quarterback away, but that would be a start.
I could see where Takedo's coming from with that. I think organizationally they're starting to maybe turn the tide. Correct me if I'm wrong, but do they still have Matt Rule?
No,
Matt Rule's been fired.
no,
Yeah,
he has been fired.
so they got to start from scratch next year, right? Like they're gonna. I forgot he was an early season firing, huh? Like mid
Yep.
season.
Yeah, they're going to be they're starting a rebuild, and it's gonna be it's gonna be a few years till Carolina starts winning games that they need to win. The Lions play them this week, so we'll see if Carolina knows what they're doing, because the Lions definitely do. So this could be
Yeah,
for Carolina,
they sure do.
but I personally don't. I see the Lions winning and covering that game.
Speaking of the Lions, I was going to say, Anthony, why don't we get into this? I know you've been dying to talk about it, so why don't we get into what's been going on with Detroit? Correct me if I'm wrong, but they are on what, 6 of 7?
That's correct.
6 of 7, starting out what, like one in
It was
six?
1-6, and then they went
Unbelievable turnaround.
6-1. Yeah, it's
Unbelievable
wild.
turnaround. And the one loss, they had them. Buffalo and Detroit, that was a heck of a game. That was a heck of a
Yeah.
fight by both teams. And definitely very interesting to see how Detroit will finish down the stretch. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping and praying, not only for you, not only for the bet that I made with your brother, but just for the league to have the Lions good. I just think it would be so
Yeah.
exciting to see Jared Goff slinging it in the playoffs. I've very much we've had a very public, very very frequent discourse on Jared Goff and on whether or not he's the future starting quarterback for Detroit. And I've seen enough to say I don't think I can say that I think he's ever going to be the piece on a championship contending team. But I think, and he's already proven it with the Rams, I think with a strong enough supporting cast and a strong enough culture around him, Jared Goff can do some great things. I don't think I would be like I've said for you, I don't know if I'd be rooting for that because his ceiling is so limited athletically and in terms of traits. But in terms of what it takes to just go out there and win games and sling the rock, like he's proven that he's more than capable of that. He's definitely not a backup quarterback.
No.
I will eat those words of I thought he was a future backup quarterback. I don't think that's the case.
Well, it's the most beautiful thing in the world when Jared Goff can prove somebody otherwise, because he was playing pretty awful in some
Yeah.
of those games, and now
Yeah.
he's proving that he is that starting quarterback. And the fact that you changed your mind really shows that the Lions really are turning around, and
Yeah.
that's really amazing.
I was always rooting for them and I always believed in the culture and everything around them. I did not think that Goff was enough of a difference maker at the position to warrant even consideration to be the future starting quarterback. In a perfect world, everything is right around him, and then boom, like he can just be that guy who goes in there,
Exactly, and that's
hits
how he
those
brought the
throws.
Rams to the Super Bowl. He had what he needed. He had Sean
You're right.
McVay. He had everything that he needed to succeed, and he did. So
I had my doubts about whether or not he could sustain that, and I'm still like, I'm torn. If you ask me right now if Jared Goff is the starting quarterback for the Lions next year, I know that there's been a lot made of that he's going to be or that he already is in consideration. I think there's a lot. I think there's about a 60-40 chance that he's the quarterback next year. I think there's going to be a lot of intrigue in this draft class, and you guys are going to have a high pick due to
what draft class? In what draft class? There's
this.
not a single quarterback that's going to match the Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell scheme in Detroit. Not this year.
You don't
Maybe
think
next year's draft class, but not this year.
you don't think C.J. Stroud would
No,
be a good fit in Detroit? You don't think?
I don't. I honestly don't think so. Because
Wow.
Detroit, they like to go West Coast. It's always throw it to the flat, let the receivers do the work, throw it deep when you can, and then run the ball. And there's a lot of quarterbacks that they're not going to be able to and get into that scheme. And Jared Goff fits that scheme perfectly. Brad Holmes drafted Jared Goff when he played for the Rams. Now they're in Detroit. There's chemistry there. There's a connection. If we get a backup quarterback, you're restarting that chemistry completely from the beginning.
I
And this
understand what you're
team is
saying.
winning games now, and they're finding ways to win. They're playing amazing. So why start that over? Why change anything?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I love the passion that you have when you talk about it because it really tells me that you not A, you care, but B, that you know what you're talking about. I just think that there's something to be said for like fitting an offense to a player, and if you can get a once in a generation talent like some of these guys might be, the fact that you're so quick to write off Stroud is kind of crazy to me. Like I could not see them
I'm
passing
not
him
a
up.
fan of Ohio State quarterbacks. Name one Ohio State quarterback who's went to the Super Bowl. You can't. Nobody has.
I don't know if that's 100% true, and if we had Jimmy Ray, we could look it up. But we will get to the bottom of this, though. We will get to the bottom of this.
I mean, even if we pick a backup quarterback in round 3, like that'll be fine. But we are not picking up a starting quarterback in the first round. There are other spots. I mean, we're winning games now. We're finding ways to win. Why fix something that doesn't need to be fixed?
No, absolutely, and I'm very much comfortable with just telling you that I agree with you, and I'm not, don't hear what I'm not saying. I don't have an issue with Goff as the quarterback next year moving forward. I think he's proven enough that he can helm a competent team. I just think that if you have aspirations of getting a true difference maker at the position, you're going to have to do it in a way that is more than Goff. But that's not to say that you can't win with non-true difference makers. I mean, Jimmy G has gone to the Super Bowl twice or gone to the NFC Championship twice in the last 5 years, and I don't think he's a true difference maker at the position. If
Yeah.
if the Lions around Goff can be as strong as the Niners are around Garoppolo, I don't see any reason why the Lions couldn't still make a run for the Super Bowl with Goff at the helm. I mean, he proved it in LA. It's possible.
It's very possible, especially with this new regime. They're finding ways to win, and Detroit has never done that. So you can see that something brand new is coming.
Yeah.
So don't you can't write Detroit off. Even if we don't make postseason,
Yeah.
they're going to be there next year because there's something happening here.
Definite culture shifting year, definite tide turning year. It's important when guys like Dan Campbell come in who have the bravado and have the charisma. It's important that they back it up with what they show. And I think that you can safely say this year that the results that the Lions have put on the field, the culture is different in Detroit, and they have a real legitimate chance at being a playoff contending team for the coming years, for sure.
So, I do want to know who for fantasy. Would you
Yes.
start Jared Goff? Because this week I wouldn't. So while we're talking about Jared Goff, I say sit Jared Goff, let one of your other quarterbacks play, because Jared Goff in the cold against the Panthers, very good secondary, probably going to focus on the run game and maybe even get a high score ahead of by third quarter and just be running the clock out. So I wouldn't put Jared Goff. If you're playing fantasy, he's probably not going to get that many points. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good call. I definitely think Jared Goff is an interesting play this week. He's not the overwhelming, player that he's not the overwhelming fantasy start that we've seen him be lately this week. But I think let's first and foremost, this is a fantasy football semifinals in most leagues.
It's very important.
Most leagues with a competent scoring or a competent playoff format, this is the semifinals this week. So rolling Goff out there against Carolina. I mean, I'm not as afraid of Carolina's passing defense as you suggested. Maybe the weather is a little bit more of a variable, but I think Jared Goff is maybe a mid-tier, like between 12 and 18 ranked quarterback this week. I'm not running from him, but I definitely could see more attractive options. Again, this week, the barometer that I have for streaming quarterbacks is Geno Smith. I know it's low-hanging fruit, but Kansas City tends to get in shootouts, and they've been playing very sloppy football lately. So I would not be at all surprised to see Geno Smith throw a couple touchdown passes against Kansas City. That might be – I don't think that's a hot take, but I think that Geno Smith is where I would go for if I'd start Geno over them. Then that's kind of the barometer that I'm using today is like the Geno Smith line. Right now I'd probably start Geno over Goff, probably start Geno over who did we talk about at the beginning of the show? Remind me.
You.
Who was it?
Minshew? Foles?
Oh, yeah, it was Minshew. I'd start him over Minshew. Oh, and Foles, too. Foles? No, thank you. I'm not touching that one with a 39.5 foot
So Takedo Luna said Joe Burrow was an Ohio State quarterback and he made the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow went to LSU. He won in LSU and then went to the NFL out of LSU. He transferred from Ohio State. So I wouldn't consider him a Ohio State quarterback because he didn't win in there.
I like what you're saying there. Yeah. We gotta have those strict rules, But I do agree. Takedo said someone said name one. I get it. I get where you're coming from though, but no technicalities today.
So I do want to talk about our sleepers. So I want you to name one sleeper, and now I'll name a sleeper, and then you name another one, and then so we have 4 total sleepers that you think someone should grab off waivers if they're available, or if they're on your bench, if you should start them. So
I'm going to give you a 2-pack of running backs that have struggled of late. Well, actually, one pack of running backs who have struggled of late, and one running back that I'm just generally confident in this week. I, as weird as it is, given that Travis Etienne is going up against the New York Jets, I think you can trust him this week. I think he's going to get it done tonight. I'm going to roll out Etienne in my fantasy football semifinals because I have faith in the matchup. I know that the Jets have been a great defense this year, but I think they're a lot tougher on the pass, and I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be getting a lot of his work done in the flat, maybe checking it down to ETN, and I think ETN is going to have a lot of open space running those sweep plays that he runs, running those inside zone plays that he runs. So I'm very interested in seeing what Travis Etienne can do tonight. I think he's worthy of a start. Some people might have been hesitant given the Jets defense is so very solid. And as far as Pacheco goes, Isaiah Pacheco is my other name. He's been great lately. And Seattle's defense has been pretty good lately, but I am confident that Isaiah Pacheco will put up some numbers this week because he's on a streak, man. He's on one of those nuts, like, what was he, seventh round pick? He's on one of
Something
those
like 6 or 7, yeah.
crazy stretches to be a seventh round pick and performing at the level he's performing at. I think I have a little bit of confidence in Pacheco this week too.
I think Andy
Continue to
Reid does too, honestly. I feel like
Yeah,
he's really letting him play. He's letting him carry the ball, and I think that's going to mean a lot developing as a running back, because running back's a
yeah,
hard position to play, especially that young. So he's
yeah.
definitely proving that he could be a future running back.
He's starting them young, and I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is all but done in Kansas City. I think next season is probably his last, based on his rookie contract, and he was a first-round pick, so I doubt they'll pick up the option. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a name to watch
Yeah.
for like free agency, and I don't know if you've seen the graphic floating around, Anthony, but it's actually disgusting. The running back, in a good way, disgusting. I use disgusting
Yeah.
as a slang term.
Yeah, I
I'm not
got you.
sure if the listeners are hip to it, but the running back free agent class for this upcoming offseason is unbelievably stacked. Like
Oh yeah.
there's like 20
I'm excited
names
about it.
that are either, I mean, they're either going to stay and be affirmed as the guy on their team, which will give them a spike in
I
confidence.
could see that happening in a few teams.
Yeah, same. I think Saquon is probably going to stay. Um, my fingers are crossed. I know my cousin Baby John isn't the biggest fan, but my fingers are crossed that Devin Singletary resigns in Buffalo. Because I love Devin Singletary and I've absolutely loved what he's done. He hasn't always made the flashy plays. He hasn't always been the 100-yard, 2-touchdown guy every single week, but he gets the job done and he does his job and he's pretty sound. And
That's all you need to do.
yeah,
And with a
honestly,
team like that, who's so powerful in the pass game, that's all you need to do is you have to get first downs at 3rd and 1, and you have to nail it in on the 1-yard line for a touchdown. You don't have to be a Najee Harris or Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry sometimes. You
yeah.
don't have to be, because they don't rely on that run game. But having one is going to open up that backfield, allow Josh Allen to do his job. And I
And I
think
think
that's
we've
really
seen
important.
that. I
We
think
have.
down the stretch last season and in recent weeks, the better we see the Bills run the ball, the more success we see them throwing the ball. It's sort of the weirdest like catch 22. It's but everybody says establish the run, it opens up the pass. The Bills for years have been trying to establish the pass to open up the pass. And I'm okay with it because they have Josh Allen and they have the weapons that they have, but when motor gets going, there are few running backs in the NFL who have the consistency that he has. I'm not saying the high
He can
level.
catch too.
He's good at
He can catch off the flat sometimes, and
he's a
it's
sleeper coming out
get
of the
the yak
backfield.
yards after catch.
So, you have Baby Cook, James Cook, you have Nyheim Hines, and you have Devin Singletary. I mean, if he'll sign for a reasonable price, I would love to see Devin Singletary stay in Buffalo. I don't know if it's going to happen or not.
It's not a top 10 running back room, but like you said, it gets the job done. I mean, in your opinion, do you think they should re-sign him?
I do.
Or
I
should they
would like
try to
to
look
see
for a
them.
different running back?
I would like to see them re-sign him, but for a modest contract. I know
Fair.
the running back position. I think there's going to be a lot of running backs who end up getting paid this offseason because there's some big names in there. I think Josh Jacobs is a free agent. My goodness. And they didn't even pick up the 5th-year option. So they kind of casted him aside. Maybe now with his breakout, they'll be rethinking that. But
Yeah. I
that's
said, being a Barkley, Jakeo Luna said, being a Barkley, does that mean like being hurt most of the season and just having a few good games?
oh, Takeo. That's a drag right there, man. You didn't have to do that to our boy. I love Saquon, man. I love
No,
Saquon.
it's true though. He's been hurt a lot, but when he's not hurt, he's very, very productive. So,
Yeah,
um,
and so I guess that brings us to your fantasy
yes.
football starts of the week. What are or
So, or
sleepers of the week, I
my
should say.
sleeper, my first sleeper is going to be Tampa Bay's Cade Otton.
Oh,
So this is why Tom Brady loves throwing the tight ends, like Gronkowski. I
yep.
mean, his whole era was throwing to Gronkowski for a touchdown. It even like carried over to Brait, and with Brait being out, now Otton is rising up as Tom Brady's top tight end target, and Tom Brady is actually leading the league in the short game. He's been focusing on the short game. He's the quarterback with the most short passes, and that's where that's where you're going to find the tight end is in the
Yeah.
short game, especially in the red zone. It's very important. And considering the Cardinals have allowed the most points to tight ends in fantasy this year, I think Cade Otton would be a good sleeper pick. I know he's like their third string tight end. I think he might have gotten up to second string now, but against Arizona, start Cade Otton. Tom Brady loves his tight end, so you're going to get a few touchdowns.
I think that's a great shot in the dark sleeper there, and I like that you actually went with like a deep cut sleeper. If I were gonna do the same thing, now this is extremely, extremely. This is not for the faint of heart. Okay, you got to have a
Oh
strong
boy.
stomach. Okay, the streaming quarterback tight end hybrid, Jeff Driscoll for the
Oh, that
Houston
was your sleeper
Texans.
last week too.
You know what? He had a bad game, but you know what? If you're desperate to stream a tight end, I have a couple options. I have Greg Dulcich, and I have
That one I can agree with.
well, Greg Dulcich kind of had a terrible game against the Cardinals, which you just talked about, hemorrhaging points to the tight end. So I'm hesitant to start him again because if you can't produce against the Cardinals and you're a tight end,
Right.
what are you doing?
Where do you blame the quarterback there?
Well, that's a good point. I
Where you
mean,
know what I
Brett
mean?
Rippon doesn't have a ton of experience starting, so I don't know how much that's on the quarterback and how much that's on Greg Dulcich, but either way, it's not going to be any better this week.
So I believe Cade Otton got 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games. But he
Yeah,
has gotten like 60, 70 plus yard games. So I think he's a good sleeper pick. But my
yeah.
second guy is going to be a running back for the Los Angeles Rams, Cam Akers.
Ooh,
He's been getting more touches and more carries than any other running back in the last 3 weeks, and I think that's not going to slow down. The Broncos' pass game you don't want to mess with, but their run game I think you could play with a little bit. So I think that they're going to be handing it off to Cam Akers, keep that secondary back there, because that Denver defense is tough. So you're going to have to figure out some way to get through there. Baker Mayfield we know now he's a decent quarterback. He can make plays. He's no what's John Wolford.
yeah.
He's not a Wolford, so at least they have someone under center who's better.
Yeah.
Not as good as Stafford. I don't know if we can say that this year. Not as good as Stafford last year, but I think Cam Akers is going to get a lot of touches, a lot of carries. I think he's going to be a good sleeper pick if you
I
have
I really
him on
like
your
that pick.
bench.
I really like that pick because he was so highly drafted and he had such a dramatic fall off to the point where he was almost shipped out of town.
Yeah,
LA was almost looking to get rid of Cam mid-season, and now he's borderline startable in fantasy again, which who would have thought?
yeah,
But here we are where Cam Akers is a sleeper pick for the freaking fantasy playoffs. I'm sure a lot of people thought he was going to be a sleeper pick for fantasy MVP on the season because he was available at such a discounted draft rate. But
right.
with that injury, I wasn't going anywhere near him. And in hindsight, I'm really glad I didn't.
Even when Daryl Henderson was playing, who no longer playing for the Rams, he was getting most of the carries. So now Cam Akers is the starting running back. He's
Yeah.
that guy
Yeah.
who's going to be carrying the ball most of the way. Their second string running back is no good, so he's definitely gonna be taken
Well,
there.
Kyron Williams is okay, but he's more of a pass catching back. I don't really trust
Exactly.
him
He
in the
doesn't
game.
know how to find the gaps. He doesn't know
Not
how to
yet.
follow his blockers. Not yet. He has work to do.
Yeah, he's only a rookie, so
Yeah,
I
keep
think Kyron
practicing.
Williams is a name to watch. Like if I had him in a dynasty league, I would definitely be holding on
Yeah.
tight. But I don't know about as far as this season. I think he's probably just going to be the kind of guy you just stash. Hope to see him have an increased role next season.
Yeah. So we have 10 minutes left. Who is your start of the week?
My start of the week for fantasy football, it's tough because I want to go obvious and easy. I know last week you gave us the deep cut of Justin Jefferson and Christian McCaffrey, the two pack of the. But if I was to go like start of the week, I think Ramondre Stevenson gained a lot of trust from me after coming back from the
Okay.
ankle injury last week and still performing. I was really worried about Ramondre, so I have him in 2 leagues, and I ended up sitting him in one of my leagues because I wasn't sure he would be healthy enough to produce, but he produced all right, man. He won a lot of people at their matchups last week who had the stones to start him.
We're at the time in fantasy that you have to be winning games, and if he can help you win games, then yeah, he's definitely
Yeah.
a solid start.
So I think Ramondre Stevenson is going to be my start of the week, given that he was coming back from an injury last week, and I was genuinely terrified starting him. And like I said, I didn't even start him in all my leagues because I was too scared. But I'm ready. I'm giving him the vote of confidence this week after coming out and performing really well last week. I'm going to say Ramondre Stevenson. What about you, Anthony?
Geno Smith versus the Chiefs.
There you go.
And I
Hey,
know we brought it up earlier, so that's why but yeah, Geno Smith against the Chiefs. The Chiefs have been allowing 20 plus points to every quarterback all year. That includes Davis Mills, who's not that effective of a quarterback, but the Kansas City Chiefs have been allowing shootouts. I can see Geno Smith scoring a decent amount of touchdowns, and especially even if Kansas City does get a very high lead, we're going to have game script garbage time that Geno Smith's going to be airing it out. He is missing Tyler Lockett, so note that, but he does have DK Metcalf. And I think that's going to be a very pass heavy game because Kansas City's secondary isn't they're not as good as they were when they won the Super Bowl, and that explains a
no.
lot of
Yeah.
why they're getting close to like losing against the Texans. They lost against the Colts. That's a big reason why. So Geno Smith is my start of the week.
I love that. And now, Anthony, why don't you kick us off with the sit of the week?
Nick Foles.
Nick
I don't know
Foles.
who has Nick Foles. I don't know if anyone picked him up, but if you have Nick Foles, keep him on the bench. We haven't seen enough of him at all to decide. I mean, even was it Sam Ellinger got the
Yeah.
starting job after Matt Ryan was benched. Nick Foles didn't even get the starting job. So if you have Nick Foles, keep him on the bench or keep him on waivers. Don't even pick him up. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think it's a good
I
call.
will admit to that if I'm wrong. If Nick Foles has like a 50-point game,
Yeah.
then we'll go back to this. But he has won a Super Bowl, so
Yeah.
he has that experience. So I mean, we'll see.
All right, check this out, Anthony. I got another 2-pack for you. But
Okay.
I'm gonna go with a couple that are maybe gonna be a little controversial. Number one, there is no more picking on Detroit's defense. You cannot do it. Earlier in the season, you saw
Okay.
a player was facing Detroit. You put him in your lineup. It didn't matter if
Yep.
if they were a good
Even
player
I
or
did
not.
it. I'm biased.
Yep. But Deontay Foreman, I just don't see it this week. I think it is time for him to ride the pine for the rest of the season. He got me 1 point last week
no.
in a favorable matchup. So this week in a matchup where Detroit's been shutting everybody down lately, especially on the ground, no more. I'm not doing it.
Wow.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I like that sit. I like that. I have Foreman on one of my leagues. So I'm definitely gonna be sitting him against that Detroit
gotta
defense.
sit Foreman, and I'm also sitting the aforementioned Mr. Greg Dulcich because I can't do it, man. I know that it was quarterback, this, that, and the third. He got me 1 point, bro, against Arizona. That's the team everybody picks on.
Yeah.
Again, it's the same situation.
And not now they're playing the Rams, which their defense is still good.
They're okay. Yeah, they
They're
have an okay
not
defense.
awful.
Yeah,
The problem with the Rams is the offense. So the defense can
absolutely.
still hold up. And so yeah, I think that's a good sit as well.
Yeah, those are my 2 sits of the week. So I went a little bit spicier on my sits than I did on my start and on my sleepers. You need a certain degree of sweet
Yeah.
and spicy and savory. So there you go. That's my trio. But are we previewing tonight's game by any chance?
Yes, we are. We can do that at the 5-minute mark. Let's do that now.
That actually sounds
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so let's do our Thursday night football preview. Who do you think's gonna win?
Who do I think is going to win? I'm thinking that it's a 3-point spread. Last time I checked, maybe a 2-point spread. Jets were favored. Yeah, I'm smashing Jacksonville +2,
Me
plus
too.
1.5,
I agree.
+3, +5. Or +1, pick them, whatever. I trust Jacksonville to win this game and obviously cover the spread. Trevor Lawrence has been dealing lately.
Yep,
You
the Jets
know,
are favored 2.5.
yeah, so that's almost full 3 points, and yeah, I'm just confident in Jacksonville. I mean, they went out there and took care of business against Dallas. That was
Yep.
a shocking upset. Trevor Lawrence has been dealing. I don't think Trevor's going to have his biggest game, but look for him to get enough done to score some points.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry to say this, but and because I know Pro Football Demon just loves the Jets, but Zach Wilson is garbage. He is garbage. He's on our
I
waiver
don't know
wire
I don't
in
know
our
how
dynasty
much
league.
of the Lions game you watched, the Lions and Jets game, but there were 4 times where Zach Wilson just threw it up, the receiver had to do all the work.
I'm not
And it
surprised.
should have been picked, it should have
Yeah.
been incomplete, but it wasn't. The receiver had to do all the work because Zach Wilson had no idea what he was doing, especially at the very end of the game during that final drive that Zach Wilson had to take it to field goal range. He had one good play out of like 8, and that's the reason why. And the Detroit defense shut him down. I want to give them credit for that.
Right.
But I mean, because Detroit has a very they have a habit of making bad quarterbacks look elite.
Yeah.
They haven't been lately, and that's why it's so important that this defense holds up. And Zach Wilson was never really a problem. He was never a big issue.
Yeah, he's extraordinarily lucky he has Garrett Wilson because Garrett Wilson is just I think he's going to be one of those top 5, top 10 receivers for like his whole career. Like he is such a dog. He is so good at contested catches. He's good after the catch. He's good at getting open. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think those two are going to have a lot of very complementary success across from each other. I mean, like not on the same field, obviously, because the Jets are in the AFC and the Lions are in the NFC. But I think that
Yeah.
Amon-Ra and Garrett Wilson, I think those are two perennial Pro Bowl sort of players in the future, next 10, 15 years of football.
I can agree with that. Their athleticism is matched, and
Yeah.
I think that if he had a better quarterback throw, like even Mike White
Oh,
allowed him to,
exactly.
do
Dude,
very
if
good,
Mike
produce very
White
well.
is healthy, I might pick the Jets over the Jags, but unfortunately, I can't
Yeah,
do it
Baker
with
Movie.
Zach Wilson at the helm. I'm not
No.
afraid of him. I'm not intimidated by him even in the
Neither. I mean,
slightest.
even when the Lions game was so close, but I was still like, could he? I'm like, no, he can't, and he
It's
didn't.
it's
So
kinda hilarious because I am on my soapbox. I'm in my ivory tower, but Zach Wilson did beat the Bills this year, so I guess he
true.
deserves a shred of credit, and look, he's got the
You saw that
athleticism.
secondary though. That Jets defense shut up. I mean, they technically scored a touchdown, technically,
Yeah.
because I mean, I gotta give credit to the Jets defense. Zach Wilson just did the dirty work.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the athleticism. All right, he's got a great arm. He's got the traits, but he hasn't shown that he has it mentally. I've heard all the talk about where he came from and his passion for the game, and I haven't seen it. Like I'm really, really looking
Yeah.
to see. I'm looking for something to believe in, and I just haven't seen it yet. And
This is a
yeah,
guy that thought he had it all when he got drafted, but he still
yeah,
had to play, and
yeah.
he's not. He's not that guy. I think for the Jets.
He just hasn't proven the thing that hurts me the most is that leadership, man. He just hasn't proven to be accountable. Like
Exactly.
I don't know if I'll ever let him live it down that he said that the defense or he didn't let the defense down at all. I can't let him live that down. That's
No.
embarrassing.
It's very embarrassing,
Yeah,
especially if you're the quarterback of this team. Like you're supposed to be the leader. You're the
yeah,
play caller. You're the ball snapper. Like
yeah,
you throw the ball, you hand it off. And if you need to give credit to the entire team or don't give credit at all.
yeah. I want my quarterback to be the guy who plays great and then loses and says it was my fault. I want the
Yeah.
quarterback to be the guy who says I could have done more, even if he did everything on earth possible.
And because of this, I'm picking the Jaguars to win and cover against the Jets tonight. I think Trevor Lawrence is that guy. He is that leader that
Yeah,
Jacksonville
I
needs.
agree.
Urban Meyer stunted his development, but
Yep,
now he's on a rise, and I'm really excited to see it. I like Trevor. I liked watching him play in
me too.
college. I could
Me
see them
too.
being the Jets tonight.
I definitely thought the people calling him a bust so soon were just so overreacting. Like you have to
Oh
wait
yeah,
a little bit in football, you
wait,
know. Like,
yeah,
and I'm over here saying this. I mean, it is Zach Wilson's second year now. We're starting to say this stuff, but even I'm not crazy enough to think that he won't ever be anything. Like, give him like a chance, and maybe we'll see. But so far,
time
nothing
is
there.
up. Our
We did it.
perfect ending.
What a
All right,
show!
so you have the Jaguars covering and winning, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's right. So that it's unanimous. Jaguars going to win tonight, according to us.
Book it.
So
Bet the house.
bet the house. So thank you everybody who listened, who
Yeah,
joined.
we appreciate you, Takedo and Nick. We love the comments. We love the engagement. Keep it
Always,
high.
always. So if you have any fancy questions, don't be afraid to tweet at _legit_football, and we will answer those questions for you. Brian McFadden is an incredible,
Great
and now
football mind.
he's just, his mind is amazing. He's
Can't
very
wait to chat more
analytical.
football with Brian. If
Yeah.
Brian, if you hear this, come chat some
He'll be
football
back.
with us.
So tweet that. He'll reply to you. He'll tell you what to do. We have the fantasy playoffs. So if you have something that's just been
Also, feel
keeping
free
you
to
up,
tweet at the Buffalo Trill if you
That's
want
right.
to just chat, send me some corny memes, talk some smack about Josh Allen. I'm always game for it.
So thank you everybody for coming. Enjoy tonight's game and enjoy this weekend's game. 30 Minutes of Football is doing game picks tomorrow with Brian and Tanner. So make sure you tune in for that.
Woo, woo.
This has been 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football.
That's spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
We'll say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner.